Serious, people who experienced being held at gunpoint. What was the situation and how did you manage it? I handled it like a complete dumbass. Working overnights at a gas station. 3 AM sometime in December. Some guy came up to the locked doors on the one side of the building and tried to get in. I was standing right next to them making coffee for the morning. So I notice he's wearing a mask on his face and I go, "Oh man, it's cold outside but not that cold, weird. Arizona BTW. I turn and point to the unlocked set and yell, "Go around." Then he points at me. I'm like, "WTF man, go around." Well, he doesn't and decides to walk away. At this point I am beginning to think that whole thing was odd. I check the cameras and sure enough, dude is pointing a revolver at me 5 feet away through the glass right at my face and I told him to go around. He ended up going down the street 3 miles and robbing a different gas station. Felt pretty sick after realize how close I came to possibly being injured. TLDR. Ending up having a gun pointed at my face and I didn't even realize it. Robbed at gunpoint while working in the family grocery store. I was 17. Opened the register drawer and stepped away. They were too stupid to lift up the drawer where several $100s were sitting and only got away with about $80. After they left I realized I had wet my drawers. I think you're allowed to pee yourself in that situation. I was working graveyard shift at a gas station. It was near the end of the night so I was looking at the lotto tickets and counting tickets for my shift sheet. Dude walked in and right up to the counter. I didn't have time to even look up. He put the barrel of the gun right on my forehead. He told me to empty the till into a bag. Calmly I told him every move I was making so he didn't freak out. When he realized it was only about $30 in cash, he told me to grab him 3 cartons of Marlboro Reds. After that he told me he was gonna go grab a gallon of milk, and if I looked up at him, he would kill me. I laid my hands on the counter and stared at my shoes. He grabbed the milk, the smokes, and the cash and told me to turn on the gas pump. That's right. He needed to fuel up after he robbed the store. As soon as he was pumping the gas and looking away I hit the emergency rescue button under the counter. I then jumped over the counter and locked the doors and hid. I didn't look up until I could see the flashing blue and red lights outside. What I thought was an hour was only a few minutes passing by. Dude didn't even finish filling his tank before the cops showed up. The worst part was after I unlocked the door and let the police in the store. I hadn't said a word until an officer asked how I was doing and if I was injured at all. I looked up and attempted to talk but instead just threw up all over myself and the poor officer. I quit that job. I was working at a coffee shop and our tip jar kept getting stolen from the drive-thru. It made me really mad because we weren't making that much money hourly so any little bit on top of that was really appreciated. I was the supervisor for the shift and I saw a girl sneaking toward the tip jar and knew exactly what was going to happen. She saw me notice her then ran and grabbed it and ran off. I ran out the front door chasing her and when she saw that I was going to catch her she threw the tip jar down in the parking lot and hopped in a car with several other young kids that was obviously waiting on her. I started yelling at them saying I was going to call 911 and that I had their license plate and a kid pulled out a revolver and stuck it out the back window at me. I didn't even really have time to process it. I just put my hands up and backed off and they drove away. I went back and collected the $1.37 they almost made off with from the parking lot. What a bunch of buttholes. It was back in the 80s in Southern California. I was playing laser tag in the street with a friend after dark. There was a small modern business park with ramps and stairs near my house. We were running and jumping and having a great time. Suddenly 2 police cruisers pull up aggressively and 2 cops jump out with their guns drawn on us and yell for us to drop our weapons. Our glowing, science fiction sounding plastic oversized toys. We drop them and fall to the ground as they walk up to us with their guns inches from the back of our heads. The whole time we were screaming, "It's laser tag, it's laser tag." I don't really remember what happened next except for my mom being super pissed at our crotchety old neighbor from across the street. She was convinced the only reason the cops showed up was because he called them even though he knew we were playing a game. That is so messed up. As a kid in the 80s I remember hearing about a cop who ended up shooting a kid playing laser tag on a schoolyard after hours. Insane to think that we'd run around the neighborhood with those realistic Intertech guns like it was nothing. I was rear-ended while driving at night. I had just gotten into town and left the airport to try and catch friends downtown. No dice, so I decided to go home. On my way I'm at a red light and a guy hits me while I'm at a dead stop, so I get out to inspect damage. Dude gets out of his car and aims a desert eagle at me, square in the chest, and asks why I'm out of my car. A woman with him pops out and screams to shoot me. I looked at my feet, put my hands up, and started to talk. I told the guy I was just checking out my bumper, but it's fine. I just got home and had a bad week. Just want to get some sleep, etc. I backed up slowly until I hit my open car door. I can tell the guy is still aiming at me, so I say it's cool, I didn't see crap and I'm just going to drive home. It worked. He didn't say another word to me and put his gun away. The light was red again, so I waited, and then the guy goes around me, stops in the road to check for traffic, and drives off. I got his make, model, and plate, not to mention descriptions of him and the woman. I called 911 and the cops came out of nowhere patrolling all over town looking for the guy. I have my info and report to a cop and went home. 2 weeks later they found the car, abandoned and partially burned, 10 miles away. It was stolen the night I had my run-in. New York City, 2009. My friend and I were mugged just before Halloween. The guy demanded everything we had. I handed over all my crap, phone, wallet, keys. My friend refused. The guy shot him in between the eyes. I watched my friend die that night. I remember the blood hitting my face and feeling numb, and then looking on the ground and seeing my dead friend. My instinct was to try and run after them, but they were gone. It was late and no one was around really. I went to a payphone and called the cops. The cops came and put me in cuffs while the ambulance took my friend away. I was brought to the police station and questioned before finally being released and driven home by an officer. It's gotten easier to manage and deal with, but I think about it every day and it hurts. 2016. In sunny Los Angeles, and I'm driving to the Trader Joe's 3 blocks away from my apartment to buy some iced tea. As I pull onto the street I notice a police car following close behind me and quickly turn on its flashing lights. I'm thinking, there's no way they're flashing those lights at me, right? I'm driving under the speed limit. My car is fine. I'm 2 blocks from home. So I turn into the Trader Joe's parking lot pretty calm, if confused, and then exit the car to find 2 policemen angrily shouting at me, guns drawn and pointed at my head. Get down on the ground. Get down now. I've never had someone point a gun at me, so I kind of just freeze in place. The policemen shout louder, livid, guns directly at my forehead. I notice other shoppers I've run into 100 times at the grocery store turn to look at me as one policeman approaches quickly and pulls my arms behind my back while the other trains his gun at my head. The first policeman is handcuffing me and puts my face onto the ground. He says, "Stop shaking," and I say, "I'm sorry, I can't," and I realize I'm basically vibrating in terror as I have no idea what's going on. The second officer checks my body for weapons, finds nothing, because, basically, I'm just some random dude who ran out of Tejava, and then asks if my name is blah blah blah. I forget. It's quickly determined that they were looking for someone and I'm not that person, so they let me go. I get up from the ground and look at the store. I'm still pretty much shaking in terror, but I decide to walk into the Trader Joe's anyway and buy iced tea. Pretty much everyone in the store is asking me what happened. My answer is pretty much that I have no idea. I just want a beverage. 10 minutes later I'm back home and I put the iced tea in a glass and take a drink and think like, dang, why is life so complicated? My dad was eating alone in a parking lot at night and got held up for some money. He handed it over and that was that. But he always tells me that the predominant emotion he felt when he saw the gun was seething anger. Like it pissed him off to be so helpless more than it actually frightened him. But just for a split second until the fear finally hit him. That's how I feel like I would handle it. Be really pissed off that someone is taking advantage of me like that. I was working as a barback and living in a row house in a major US city. I had just gotten home from a 15-hour shift with $100 in my pocket to show for it. Because of the late hour, street parking was full up, but there was a small parking lot behind my tow that usually had spots. We had a back door that faced the lot. but kept the door chained, so I had to take the long way. I was cutting through the alley when two guys entered from the other side, walking directly towards me. I casually crossed to the other side of the alley. By I already knew I was screwed. As I passed them I noticed one had a bandana over his face, but they only made a minor effort to delay me in the dark alley with small talk. I kept on walking to the streetlight on the corner, and as soon as I turned into the street I heard the two guys running towards me. I thought they were going to jump me, so I stopped right around the corner and figured I'd at least go down swinging. They rounded the corner and froze as I brought my fists up, and then the masked guy pulled a gun. In the light I could tell they were teenagers. The kids with the gun yelled for my wallet and I started to reach for it and attempted to say something. I don't even know what I was going to say, but he words caught in my throat anyway. Then he yelled to get on the ground in a way that sounded more like a movie quote than a command. It didn't really matter what he told me to do because I was frozen with my hand at my side, halfway between my wallet and my pocket knife. I couldn't stop staring at the gun. Now, I grew up around guns. My dad was a former Marine, and he taught me to shoot at a young age. I'm a gun owner myself, and I've seen and handled a lot of guns over the years. This guy was pointing a Glock at me, but by the barrel size it had to be a .22. In the situation I was in, this should have been the last thing on my mind, but I had so much adrenaline pumping through me everything felt like slow motion. I'm still frozen there like a statue, and that's when the other guy said, "Give me the gun, I'll shoot his butt." He grabs the gun from his buddy and levels it at my face. My dumb butt is still just standing there wondering why this escalated from a robbery to a murder instead of doing literally anything. That's when he pulls the trigger. There's a click, and nothing else. With the trigger pull I'm finally shaken out of my statuesque state and I lunge at the gunman. He and his buddy turn tail and run out of there, and I turn around and walk the 20 feet to my front door. As soon as I'm inside my house I break down because I'm not a tough guy. I'm an over-analytical dumbass who froze up and got lucky. If it ever happens again, I'll toss my wallet and run in a heartbeat. Drove through Mexico one time to get to Guatemala. Got stopped by the Mexican army at a drug checkpoint. Had a rifle stuck in my face and was ordered out of my vehicle. When you have a rifle in your face, you just do what you're told. They went digging through my car and found my traveling money. They asked me what it was for. It was several $100s, and then put it back. I moved it later because I thought there was a decent chance they'd call ahead and have me robbed. I never got robbed, so either they didn't or the ambush missed us. It wasn't incredibly terrifying, but it certainly makes you very conscious about what you're saying when held at gunpoint. This was about 17 years ago. I was living in Colombia at the time and it was very insecure those days. We had just finished high school and I was with two friends talking outside, a couple of houses down from my place. My friend was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and sitting in his new bike, a motorcycle, given to him as a graduation gift, with the keys in the ignition. I was standing and so was my other friend. All of a sudden two guys come around the corner and one of them pulls a gun and places it to the back of my head. I actually felt the muzzle, while the other just lifted his t-shirt and showed the gun he had tucked on his jeans. They said, "Give us the keys, we're taking the bike." What happened next happened very fast, but I'll explain it in slow fashion. First things first, I froze, not playing the hero in this story. The friend that's standing had some random papers in his hands. I really can't recall what they were, and then he starts to fast talk, saying, "Oh, man, you don't want to have anything to do with us. We're just some poor kids. I just got accepted into community college, cause we can't afford private university. These are my acceptance papers. Wanna read them? We're just talking here. This bike is the neighbor's. We're just poor guys. This gold chain is a fake. We don't even live around here." And he said similar things in like 5 seconds. The other friend, sitting in the bike, while the fast talker is droning on and on, very slowly pulls the keys from the ignition and just drops them into his sleeve. The two thieves look at each other. I close my eyes knowing this is it. I'm gonna die a virgin. Next thing I know, guy pointing at me says, "These suckers have nothing." He tucks the gun in his jeans, and the other one says, "Turn around. You guys didn't see nothing." Sure, we didn't see a thing. We all turn and look to one side of the street. Them dudes I guess hightail it the other way. We stay silent for about a minute. AMD then immediately move the bike in a hurry to my place and lock the door. My dad looks at us, and we're pale as a dead fish. We tell him and boy is he mad. He gets the neighbor and put me and my friends on the truck to go around the neighborhood, see if we can spot the would-be thieves. Lucky for them, I guess. We didn't. TLDR. 2 friends and I are almost mugged. A friend sweet talked our way out of that one. Your dad and neighbor are badasses though for trying to hunt down those suckers. I was an oblivious teenager living in a bad part of Houston. Turned the corner walking my dog and ended up in the middle of what looked like a SWAT raid. I was on my phone and they were raiding the corner house. Had what was probably a greenhorn point fire pistol at me and screamed to turn back the way I came or something. I turned and ran my butt home with my fat golden retriever huffing at my side. Point of the story, I learned to pay more attention even close to home. I was on holiday in Belize with my GF. Some thug came up to us in the middle of the night and pointed the gun at my GF head. She started crying. He kept saying wallet. All I had in my wallet was my credit card and other cards. I didn't carry cash on me. He kept asking where is your money and I kept repeating all I got was my card. He asked for my PIN and I told him. He let my GF go. A couple hours later I reported the card missing. No money was taken because I gave him a fake PIN number. My GF was distraught and we flew back to France. She needed therapy for a while after. I feel like this would be a modern robbery. Take my wallet with a few bucks, library card, and debit cards, where I give you a fake PIN, and my phone which is locked, so you walk away with a useless phone, a few cards you can't use, and a few dollars. At a gas station playing slot machines. Illegal here in Houston but they're everywhere, and a guy comes running in out of breath. About 10 seconds later, another guy comes in and points a gun at him. The first guy runs straight to me and hides behind me. The gun gets pointed right at me. I instantly started sweating and got weak in the knees. I yelled out the first thing I thought, "Don't freaking shoot me," to get to him and turned around at the guy hiding and said, "Move," and grabbed him and pushed him to the side. In the split second the gun was pointed at me. I saw everything I ever wanted to do, everything I've ever loved, got a new look on life, which lasted about 48 hours LOL. Right after I shoved the guy with the gun must have had an epiphany because he just took off out of the door and the other guy got off the floor and walked out looking like he'd seen a ghost, probably his own. It scared the crap out of me like nothing before. Any feeling you get when you're nervous or going on a roller coaster or doing something that you think scares you, it isn't crap until you've had a gun pointed in your face. It really freaking sucked. In the split second the gun was pointed at me, I saw everything I ever wanted to do, everything I've ever loved, got a new look on life, which lasted about 48 hours LOL. I've had a couple near-death experiences. This is the most accurate sentence I've ever read. Late at night I had just dropped a buddy off at home and pulled off onto a side street. I guess I fell asleep at the wheel because the next thing I remembered was a tree that I swerved to avoid, which caused me to pop over a flower bed, almost ramming through the house and inches away from a circuit breaker. Called my friend because he had a truck. He came over and there was just no way we were getting it out. I had knocked on the house several times and had prepared a note with all my details to leave behind just in case there was damages we couldn't see. Some time later a car pulls up to the driveway that looks like it goes to that house. We approach the car, thinking it was the homeowner. Guy comes out immediately with a handgun pointed at us. Immediately our hands go up. We completely stop moving and my much more used to crazy stuff friend takes over and explains what had happened and why we were approaching them in the middle of the night. Guy was cool afterwards, apologized and explained that he was just so paranoid because his pregnant girlfriend was with him and he didn't want trouble. We chat while the cops come to tow my car and take me home. I didn't really freak out, was just at a loss for words. There was really no recovery from it. I wasn't stressed over that at all, only at totaling my car. I don't blame the guy for it. I mean, I'm a stocky guy and my friend is over 6 foot and was in pretty good shape. Not something I'd want approaching me at 3 AM with my pregnant girlfriend with me. The bank that I worked at was robbed, and the guy had a gun. We had bullet resistant glass separating us but he still shot at us all several times. The worst part is, we gave him the money. He was too drugged out and didn't notice it, thought it was fake and got more agitated no matter what we did. He was threatening to shoot customers and we just didn't know what to do. He finally ran out about 1 minute before the police showed up. We think he must have had an accomplice by the station to let him know. The police do not use sirens in that situation to avoid turning it into a hostage situation. No one was injured, but a customer with a heart condition was taken to the hospital as a precaution. Most of the tellers left banking afterwards, myself included. 90. I was on my first job, 550 kilometers away from my parents. I was 16. Which explains why I was taking a trash bag out with a beer in my hand. As I was walking towards the bins, I saw a guy with fresh bloody scrapes on his face. Not bad, but looked like he had been in a fight. I dropped the bags in the bin and turned back. He wanted to talk with me. He was between me and my mate's apartment where I was hanging out that Friday night, so I had no choice but to engage in small talk. I was right. He had been in a fight in the local pub just around the corner, which is the thing he wanted to talk about. Something about a woman, and even during his explanation he revealed to be somewhat deserving of a bit of a beatdown. I can't remember what it was, but something about being in butthole to his ex and the new guy stopping that. He kept talking about revenge. I was trying to disengage. Had managed to already to do the walls so that he wasn't between me and the bungalow apartment. Was planning on long withdrawal back. One step at a time when he suddenly just said, "Do you want to die?" and showed a handle of handgun. I'm from Finland, so handguns are rare. Them being carried in open even more so. I had no idea if it is real or not. All I knew was that there is a drunken, beaten up guy planning a vengeance with a gun, and he had asked me a question. I said nah, not really. Here, wanna have a beer instead? And he put the gun back to his jacket pocket and took my beer. I said farewell with a smile and laugh. Said something like, "Take it easy, man. I have to go back inside. I think it is the better choice for you too." Turned my back and walked back, trying to look as relaxed and worry-free as I could. The beer I drank pretty much on 2 gulps back inside was one of the best beers I've ever had. I didn't call the cops. It was the sort of neighborhood where it isn't the best of ideas. Factory-owned cheap housing, dirt roads and yards. Ants were a huge problem. Everyone worked in the 2 factories nearby or in the military harbor at the end of the road. All were unemployed ex-factory workers. What a brilliant response. You took a dangerous situation and humanized it. I opened my front door to 2 dudes with guns back when I was in college. I was leaving for a party and there was a weed deal going on in the living room. I thought they were the cops at first until I realized they had stockings over their faces. Pushed me into the living room. Held guns to the dealer and my heads, not the buyer. Pretty sure he was in on it. And took the weed and money and left. I had a red mark on my face from the barrel of the gun. I was actually just pissed at everyone involved. Didn't really faze me otherwise. I still went to the party. I think it was because I was 19. If it happened to me now, I'd probably crap my pants and start crying. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.